Christmas Eve. Snow coming down heavy on the frozen fields, wind whistling through the barn cracks loud enough to hear from the garage. I was sorting boxes from Diane's mother's estate. Old quilts, church directories, photo albums nobody wanted. My hands were cold, the space heater barely worked, and my breath came out in clouds even with my coat on. That's when I found it. Photo album, church Christmas party, date stamp clear as day, December 10th, 1988. Diane, in a green dress, visibly pregnant, 4, maybe 5 months. Cole Hartman's arm around her waist. Both of them smiling like they had a secret. I did the math twice. Our first date was January 14th, 1989. Macy was born April that year. Premature, Diane always said. I walked inside. Diane was arranging fresh flowers on the counter, humming. Cole's crop insurance calendar hung on the wall behind her. I'd never noticed before. April had a handwritten note. M's week. I showed her the photo. She barely looked up. That's mislabeled. Church archives mix things up all the time. And I'm not cutting off Cole just because you're insecure about some old picture. Grow up, Warren. I said, fair enough, and went back to the garage. Then I pulled out my phone and searched paternity test without consent. The phone screen glowed in the dark garage. 15 search results about paternity testing. I clicked the first one. Read about cheek swabs and lab processing times and court orders. The space heater clicked and rattled behind me. Inside the house, I could hear Macy laughing. 17 years old, home from her shift at the feed store, helping her mother string lights on the tree. My daughter, the only good thing I'd done with my life. I looked at the photo again. Diane's face, younger but unmistakable. That green dress I'd never seen, Cole's hand on her hip, proprietary, comfortable. The math didn't work, couldn't work. But Diane's voice was still in my head. Grow up, Warren. I'd been growing up for 62 years. Raised one daughter already, my first wife, Sarah's girl, before cancer took Sarah and the girl, moved to California, and forgot to call. Built a business with Frank from nothing, served my country, paid my taxes, never missed a handshake or broke a promise. And I'd married Diane because she'd seemed different after Sarah. Bright, needed me. Said I was solid, dependable. Said she wanted stability after years of chasing the wrong kind of men. I closed the phone, put the photo album under my arm, walked back through the snow to the house. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and pine. Diane had her Christmas playlist going. Bing Crosby, Smooth and Warm. Macy was on the stepladder, hanging an ornament I'd made her when she was 6. Popsicle sticks and glitter. She'd kept it all these years. Dad, you're freezing, Macy said. Get some coffee. I poured from the pot. My 97 thermos sat on the counter. I'd gotten it in the Army, used it every morning since. Diane had tried to throw it out twice. Said it was ugly. I'd retrieved it from the trash both times. Diane glanced at me. Did you finish sorting Mother's things? Most of them. Good. The church wants the quilts by Sunday. She adjusted a flower stem. Her hand was steady now. And Warren, about that photo, I don't want you mentioning it to Macy. She doesn't need to hear you throwing around accusations on Christmas. Macy looked between us. What photo? Nothing, honey, Diane said. Your father's just stressed about the seed order. The seed order, December 15th, 2 weeks from now. Every year, since I'd bought into the business, 40 years, I placed our spring corn seed order by the 15th. $85,000, handshake deal with the supplier, 3 counties over. Farmers counted on us. Reputation built on that order, on keeping our word. This year, I'd been too distracted to call. First time ever. Did you call Miller's yet? Diane asked. She knew the routine better than anyone. She'd been handling the books for years. If you wait much longer, they'll allocate to other distributors. I'll call tomorrow. You've been saying that for a week. Macy climbed down from the ladder. Is something wrong with the business? No, I said. Just behind schedule. But I wasn't behind. I was paralyzed. Because $85,000 was a lot of money to commit when you might be looking at divorce, lawyers, and paternity tests and child support calculations for a child who wasn't yours. Diane set down her flower clippers. Warren, can I talk to you? Privately? We walked to the bedroom. She closed the door. The furnace kicked on, warm air through the vents, but I felt cold. I don't know what you think that photo proves, she said. Her voice was low, controlled. But you're embarrassing yourself. Cole and I were friends. The church did a terrible job with their archives. Half those date stamps are wrong. And even if it was December, which I doubt, there's no law that says I can't take pictures with old friends. You were pregnant. I was bloated. It was the holidays. Women gain weight. 4 months pregnant. Warren. She stepped closer. Her perfume, something floral, expensive, hit me like a wall. You're looking for problems that don't exist. Cole is a colleague. His crop insurance business helps our farmers. That's why he stops by the store. That's why we're friendly. If you have a problem with me maintaining professional relationships, that says more about your insecurities than my behavior. The word landed like she wanted it to. Insecure. Small. Paranoid. I met you in January, I said. And I was single for years before that. Yes. I dated Cole in high school. We've been over this. It didn't work out. He married Susan. I married you. Ancient history. On the photo is mislabeled, or you're misreading it, or you're inventing drama because you're scared of getting older and losing relevance. Her voice sharpened. I'm not doing this, Warren. I'm not ending a 20-year friendship with a business associate to feed your paranoid fantasy. Grow up. She left the room. The door clicked shut behind her. I sat on the bed. Our bed. The quilt her mother had made us. The dresser with Diane's jewelry box. The framed photo of Macy's high school graduation. Macy. Who had Diane's eyes and chin. Who was stubborn like me but moved like someone else. Who I'd raised and loved and sacrificed for. Who might not be mine. I pulled out my phone again. Searched for lawyers this time. Found one in the county seat, Linda Chen, family law specialist. Sent an email requesting a consultation. Then I opened my field notebook, the one I used for grain moisture readings and delivery schedules, and started a new page. December 24th, I wrote, photo discovered, Diane denies everything. Gaslighting confirmed. Note, Cole's calendar and kitchen has Macy's birthday marked M's week. Note, Diane's hand shook when I showed photo. Note, she's done this before. Redirect, accuse, make me doubt myself. Not this time. I stopped talking. Started documenting. Fair enough. January, the seed order deadline had passed on the 15th. I hadn't called Miller's. First time in 40 years. By the second week, word had gotten around. I was at Ruth's Diner, coffee and eggs. Same booth I'd used for 30 years, when Eddie Kowalski sat down across from me uninvited. He farmed 600 acres north of town, bought all his seed through us. Warren, you planning to order this year or what? He kept his voice low, but not low enough. The booth behind us went quiet. Miller's called me yesterday. Said you haven't confirmed. I got fields to plan. The coffee tasted burnt. Ruth always made it too strong after New Year's. The smell of bacon grease hung heavy in the air, mixing with wet wool from the farmers' coats drying by the door. I'll call them today. That's what Miller said you told him last week. Eddie leaned forward. The vinyl seat squeaked under his weight. Look, I don't mean to pry, but if there's financial trouble, I need to know. I can't wait until March and then scramble. There's no financial trouble. Then what's the holdup? I didn't have an answer that made sense. Because the truth, I can't commit $85,000 until I know if my wife lied about my daughter's paternity for 17 years. Wasn't something you said in Ruth's Diner. Just behind this year. I'll get it done. Eddie studied me, then nodded, stood up, dropped a 5 on the table, even though he hadn't ordered. Okay, but Warren? People are asking questions. Frank, too. Whatever's going on, handle it. He left. The diner stayed quiet for a beat too long. Then the conversation started again, lower, careful. I caught fragments. Financial trouble? Never known Warren to miss. Maybe the marriage? Ruth came by with the coffee pot. She'd owned the diner since before I was born. Had to be pushing 75 now. She refilled my cup without asking. You all right, honey? Fine. You don't look fine. You look like you're carrying the world. She glanced toward the other booths, lowered her voice. And people talk, Warren. You know how this town is. Diane was in here yesterday with the church ladies. She's telling everyone you've been difficult lately. Moody, having some kind of midlife crisis. My jaw tightened. Did she? I'm just saying. Whatever's happening between you two, folks are noticing. And when folks notice, they pick sides. She patted my shoulder. Her hand was warm through my shirt. You need anything? You call me, understand? I nodded. She walked away. I left $15 on the table and drove to the county seat through sleet that was trying to turn to ice. Linda Chin's office was on the 3rd floor of a building that smelled like old carpet and lemon cleaner. The heating system clanked and hissed. My boots left wet prints on the linoleum. She was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with gray-streaked hair pulled back and reading glasses on a chain. Her desk was organized chaos. Files stacked precise, pens in a jar, a photo of 2 teenagers I assumed were hers. Mr. Bellamy, sit. She gestured to the chair across from her. You said in your email this was about paternity? I showed her the photo, explained the timeline. She listened without interrupting, making notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she sat back. Okay, first question. Does your name appear on Macy's birth certificate as the father? Yes. Did you sign it? Diane handled all the paperwork. But yes, I must have. Then legally, you are Macy's father. Biology doesn't change that. The sleet hit the window. The sound was like gravel on metal. My hands felt cold even though the office was warm. But if she's not mine, doesn't matter, not to the state. Linda pulled a file from her desk, flipped it open. I've handled 3 paternity fraud cases in the last 10 years. All of them had the same outcome. If you signed the birth certificate, you're the legal father, period. Even if DNA proves otherwise. That doesn't make sense. It makes sense to the family court system, which prioritizes the child's welfare over the father's grievances. She looked at me over her glasses. Mr. Bellamy, I'm going to be blunt. Even if you prove Macy isn't biologically yours, you're still financially responsible. If you divorce Diane, you'll likely owe child support, not just going forward, retroactively. My stomach dropped. For how long? 17 years. The court could calculate what you would have paid if you'd known from the beginning, plus interest. I couldn't finish. The numbers spun in my head. 17 years of support. At what, $1,500 a month? More? That's over $200,000. It was closer to $280 with interest, probably. And that's before we discuss asset division. Your business, your home, any retirement accounts. Iowa's an equitable distribution state. She gets half. The radiator hissed. Outside, someone's car alarm went off, shrill and insistent, then stopped. What about her lying? My voice came out rough. What about fraud? Paternity fraud isn't a crime in Iowa, Mr. Bellamy. There's no criminal statute. Morally reprehensible? Yes. Legally actionable? No. You signed that birth certificate. The state considers that consent? I didn't consent to raise another man's child. The law doesn't see it that way. She closed the file. Her expression wasn't unkind, just tired, like she'd had this conversation before. Look, you can pursue a paternity test, get legal confirmation, but it won't absolve you of responsibility. The courts prioritize the child's established relationship with the legal father. You've been her father for 17 years. That's what matters. I sat there. The chair was hard. My coat dripped melting sleet onto the floor. So I have no options. You have divorce as an option, and you should probably pursue it, given what you've told me. But you need to understand, this won't be cheap. Not financially, not emotionally. Diane's lawyer will paint you as an unfit father, abandoning his daughter over a paranoid delusion. The court will be skeptical, and Macy will be caught in the middle. She's almost 18, 3 months shy, which means Diane still has parental rights, still has leverage. Linda leaned forward. Here's what I can do. File for a court-ordered paternity test, get the truth on record, then we strategize based on the results. But, Warren, prepare yourself. The law isn't on your side here. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady. How much for the retainer? $5,000 to start. I wrote the check. My hand shook. Not from cold. Linda walked me to the door. One more thing. Document everything. Every interaction with Diane. Every time she lies, deflects, gaslights. Build your case. The truth matters, even if the law doesn't care. I drove home through ice that made the roads slick. The truck fishtailed twice. By the time I reached the farmhouse, it was dark. Diane's car was gone. Macy's light was on upstairs. I sat in the truck with the engine running, heat blasting, and stared at the house I'd paid for, the barn I'd built, the fields I'd worked. Linda's words circled. You're still on the hook. Fair enough. So I'd document, I'd build the case. And when the truth came out, Diane would learn what happened when you mistook silence for surrender. The ice kept falling. I kept breathing. The elevator office smelled like diesel and old coffee. I'd been sleeping there 3 nights running, on the couch Frank and I had bought from a yard sale in 1987. Springs poked through the cushions. The space heater rattled in the corner, fighting against January cold that crept through the metal walls. Frank found me there on the 4th morning, 6 a.m., still dark outside. I heard his truck pull up, the door slam, his boots on the gravel. Then the office door opened, and he stood there with 2 thermoses and a look on his face I recognized from the Army, the one that said somebody's about to get their ass chewed or saved, depending. You gonna tell me what's going on, or do I have to guess? He set both thermoses on the desk. The smell of fresh coffee cut through the diesel stink. Diane called me yesterday. Said you moved out. Said you're having some kind of breakdown. I sat up. My back ached. The couch had gotten worse over the years. I didn't move out. I'm just not sleeping there. Why? I didn't answer. Frank chewed tobacco, had since we were 18 and stupid, and he pulled out his tin now, tucked a pinch in his lower lip. The motion was so familiar it hurt. 50 years of friendship, partners in the business, brothers in everything that mattered. Warren, brother, talk to me. So I did. Showed him the photo, explained the timeline, the math that didn't work, Linda's consultation, the legal trap I'd walked into 17 years ago when I'd signed a birth certificate without asking questions. Frank studied the photo for a long time. His jaw worked, the tobacco. Outside, a crow called from the grain bins. The sound echoed off the metal. Finally, he spat into his coffee can. Son of a bitch. Yeah. Cole Hartman. Yeah. I never liked that guy. Always too smooth, too friendly. And Frank set the photo down carefully like it might break. And Diane knew this whole time. She's denying it, says the photo's mislabeled, says I'm paranoid. You're not paranoid. You're being lied to. He looked at me. His eyes were red. Could have been the cold. Could have been something else. Warren, I lost my girl to cancer when she was 22. You know that. You were at the funeral. And I've watched you raise Macy like she was yours. Blood or not, you're her father. But that doesn't mean Diane gets away with this. My throat tightened. I couldn't speak. We're fighting this, Frank said. Together. You hear me? You're not alone. The lawyer says I'm on the hook regardless. Child support, asset division, even if the test proves. Then we protect the business, restructure the LLC if we have to. I'm not letting Diane take half of what we built. He pulled out his checkbook, started writing. How much you need for legal fees? Frank, no. How much? $5,000 for the retainer. But I can cover... He ripped out the check, handed it to me. $10,000. You take that. Pay your lawyer. And if you need more, you tell me. We're partners. 50-50. That means when you're in trouble, I'm in trouble. I stared at the check. The space heater clicked. The crow called again, closer now. There's something else, Frank said. The equipment loan. You remember, we applied back in November for the spring expansion. $300,000 to upgrade the conveyor system. New scales, better storage. I'd forgotten. Completely forgotten. Bank's supposed to approve by February 1st, but they need both our signatures. And Warren, they're going to want to see financial stability. If you're in the middle of a divorce, fighting paternity claims, they might pull the loan. And if they pull it, we lose the deal with Miller's on the new facility. The full weight of it settled. The business, Frank's livelihood, not just mine, equipment we'd planned for, farmers depending on us. I'll handle it, I said. Damn right you will. We both will. He spat again. First thing, get that paternity test ordered, legal confirmation. Then we talk to an accountant about protecting business assets. Then we figure out how to keep this from blowing up our operation. He stood up, grabbed his thermos. You gonna be okay? I don't know. That's honest at least. He gripped my shoulder. His hand was strong, calloused from 40 years of work. You didn't lose a daughter, Warren. You lost a liar. Macy's still Macy. Cole can rot. After he left, I sat there drinking coffee that had gone lukewarm. The sun came up slow gray light through the office window. The fields beyond stretched white and frozen. Frank was right. Document everything. Protect the business. Get the test. I called Linda Chen at 8 a.m. The emergency family court hearing was scheduled for January 23rd. Diane's lawyer, some guy from Des Moines with a suit that cost more than my truck, argued that the request was frivolous, harassing, traumatic to the minor child. Linda countered with the photo, the timeline, the mathematical impossibility. Judge Harrison was 60, gray-haired, tired-looking. She studied the evidence through reading glasses. The courtroom smelled like floor wax and weak coffee from the machine in the hall. The overhead lights hummed. I could hear my own heartbeat. Mrs. Bellamy, the judge said, do you dispute that this photograph shows you in a pregnant state approximately 4 months before your stated meeting date with your current husband? Diane sat beside her lawyer, hands folded. She'd worn her church clothes, navy dress, modest heels, the victim costume. Your Honor, church archives are notoriously disorganized. Date stamps can be wrong, and even if the date is accurate, I dispute the characterization of my physical appearance. Holiday weight gain is common. 4 months pregnant is not holiday weight gain, Linda said. Objection. Speculation. Judge Harrison held up a hand. I'm ordering a paternity test, non-invasive, court-supervised. Results to be sealed and disclosed only to the involved parties. Mrs. Bellamy, you'll comply within 10 days. Mr. Bellamy, she looked at me. Understand that this test will only establish biological paternity. It does not alter legal paternity or parental obligations. I understand. Court adjourned. The gavel fell. The sound cracked through the room like ice breaking. Diane's lawyer packed his briefcase. Diane stood up, face tight with controlled rage. She walked past me without looking, heels clicking on the marble floor. Outside, the wind cut through my coat. January brutal, unforgiving. Diane caught up to me on the courthouse steps. You just ruined your daughter's life, she hissed. Low enough the lawyers wouldn't hear. Loud enough I felt it in my chest. Hope you're happy. When she finds out what you've done, she'll never forgive you. I looked at her, really looked. At the woman I'd married, trusted, built a life with. The mother of the girl I'd raised. I'm not happy, I said, but I'm right. She walked away. Her car pulled out of the lot, tires spitting slush. Linda stood beside me. The test will take about a week once we get the samples. Are you ready for the results? No, but that didn't matter. Yes. The wind kept blowing. I kept standing. The test results came back on Valentine's Day. Linda called at 7 in the morning. I was in the elevator office again. Hadn't been home in 2 weeks. The space heater had died. Overnight, my breath came out in clouds. Warren, we have the results. I sat down on the couch. Springs groaned. Outside, a semi backed up to the loading dock. Beeping alarm cutting through the frozen air. Cole Hartman is a 99.97% match. She paused. Papers rustled on her end. Your 0% biological relation. The numbers hung there. Absolute. Final. Warren, you still there? Yeah. There's a hearing this afternoon. Judge Harrison wants to address next steps. Can you be there at 2? I'll be there. I hung up. Sat in the cold office with the certainty of 17 years collapsing. The thermos in my hand, 1987, Sarah's last Christmas gift before the cancer took her, felt heavier than it should. Frank found me an hour later. I showed him Linda's email with the test summary. He read it twice. Then he spat into his coffee can and said one word. Brother. That's when I knew I wasn't crazy. But crazy would have been easier than right. The hearing started at 2. Diane sat across the aisle with her Des Moines lawyer. She'd been crying, mascara smudged, tissue balled in her fist. The performance for Judge Harrison's benefit. The courtroom was colder than it should have been. The radiator clanked, but produced no heat. Marble floors, high ceilings, everything echoing. I could smell floor wax and the judge's coffee. Something expensive, not the courthouse machine swill. Linda presented the test results. Official, notarized, undeniable. Judge Harrison read them over her glasses. The silence stretched. Someone coughed. The radiator clanked again. Mr. Bellamy, the judge said finally, I understand this is difficult news. Yes, Your Honor. However, she set the papers down. The legal reality remains unchanged. You are listed as father on the birth certificate. You have acted as Macy's father for 17 years. In the eyes of this court, you remain her legal father with all attendant responsibilities. My chest tightened. Your Honor, I was deceived. Deception is not grounds for dissolving legal paternity in Iowa. The child's welfare takes precedence. She looked at Diane. Mrs. Bellamy, while this court does not condone dishonesty in marital relations, no criminal statute has been violated. However, her tone sharpened. I strongly suggest you consider the moral implications of your actions. Diane nodded, sobbing into her tissue. As for divorce proceedings, Judge Harrison continued, if Mr. Bellamy chooses that path, standard asset division will apply. And given that Macy is a minor for another 3 months, child support calculations will be made based on Mr. Bellamy's income and Iowa guidelines. Retroactive support may also be calculated. Linda stood up. Your Honor, with respect, Mr. Bellamy has been financially supporting a child under false pretenses for 17 years. To impose additional... Counselor, I've made my ruling. The law is clear. Mr. Bellamy signed the birth certificate. That signature constitutes legal acceptance of paternity. Biology is irrelevant. The gavel fell. The sound was like a coffin lid slamming shut. Outside the courthouse, sleet was falling. The steps were slick, ice patches forming in the cracks. Linda walked me to my truck, her briefcase banging against her leg. I'm sorry, Warren. I warned you the law wasn't on your side, but I'd hoped... She stopped. Look, we can appeal. Challenge the retroactive support calculation. But honestly, your best move is to file for divorce, negotiate a settlement, and try to preserve your relationship with Macy separate from Diane. How much? Retroactive support, conservatively, $280,000, plus half your business equity, half the house, half retirement accounts. She did the math in her head. You're looking at close to $600,000 total, maybe more if Diane's lawyer is aggressive. $600,000 for raising a child who wasn't mine, for being lied to for 17 years. And the business loan? Linda's expression told me everything. Bank's going to see divorce proceedings, paternity disputes, major asset division. They'll pull the loan, Warren. I'm sorry. Frank was waiting by his truck, tobacco tin in hand. When he saw my face, he walked over. How bad? Bad. My voice came out rough. $280 in back support, half of everything, and the loan's dead. Frank spat on the icy pavement. Son of a bitch. Judge said the law doesn't care about lies, only paperwork. Then the law's broken. As we stood there in the sleet, my hands were shaking, not from cold, from rage, helplessness. The weight of a system designed to protect everyone except the man who'd been deceived. The business, I started. We'll figure it out. Restructure if we have to. I'll call the accountant. Frank gripped my shoulder. But Warren, listen to me. You didn't lose Macy. She's still your daughter. The one you raised, the one who loves you. Cole's just the sperm donor. You're her father. But I wanted to believe him, but Diane had been working the angles. By the time I got back to town, everyone knew. Small towns move fast when there's scandal. Ruth's diner was packed. Mid-afternoon, no reason for that many trucks in the lot except gossip. I drove past, went straight to the feed store. Macy was at the counter, helping a customer with fencing supplies. She saw me come in. Her face went blank. Polite? The way you'd look at a stranger? The customer left. The store was empty except for us. The smell of seed corn and fertilizer, familiar as home. The overhead lights hummed. Dust motes floated in the pale winter sun coming through the windows. Macy, Mom called. Her voice was flat. She said you got test results. Said you've been telling people I'm not your daughter. That's not what I said. Then what? She crossed her arms. 17 years old, wearing my old feed store cap, looking at me like I was the enemy. Because Mom's at home crying. Says you're trying to abandon us. Says you're having some kind of breakdown and accusing her of lying about my whole life. Your mother lied, Macy, about a lot of things. Stop. Her voice cracked. Just stop. I don't want to hear this. Whatever's going on between you two, it's between you two. Leave me out of it. Honey, I'm trying to protect what? Your pride? Tears now, angry ones. You're destroying our family over some stupid photo. Dad, I don't care about blood. You're my dad. Why isn't that enough? Because your mother spent 17 years lying to me? Because I paid for another man's child? Because every time I look at you, I see the betrayal. But I couldn't say that. Not to her. Not to the girl I'd raised, taught to drive, helped with homework, loved with everything I had. It is enough, I said. You're enough. But the truth matters too. Not to me. Not if it means losing you. She walked past me. Out the door, I heard her car start, tires spinning on ice as she pulled away too fast. I stood alone in the feed store, the place my grandfather built, the place I'd poured my life into. And for the first time, in 62 years, I didn't know how to fix what was broken. Frank came in through the back, found me standing there. She'll come around, he said. Maybe. She will, when she understands what Diane did, when she's older and sees the whole picture. And if she doesn't? Frank didn't answer, because there was no good answer. The sleet kept falling outside. The radiator hissed. I picked up a broom and started sweeping. Something to do with my hands, something that looked like normal when everything was collapsing. Frank watched me for a minute. Then he grabbed the other broom. We swept together. Two old men in an empty store, cleaning up a mess that couldn't be cleaned. My knees felt weak. The weight of it, $600,000, half my business, Macy's cold eyes, the town talking, Diane winning despite her lies. Frank caught my elbow. Easy, brother, I got you. I leaned against the counter. The broom clattered to the floor. She's going to take everything, I said. Maybe, but you're still standing. That's something. Outside, the light was fading. February, dark coming early, cold seeping through the walls. The feed store sign creaked in the wind. I could hear it all the way inside. A sound I'd heard 10,000 times, suddenly unfamiliar. Frank spat into his can. We're not done yet, Warren, not by a long shot. But it felt like we were. God, it felt like we were. 3 days after the courthouse, I sat in the elevator office with my field notebook open. The one I use for grain moisture readings and delivery schedules. I'd started a new section in the back. Dates, times, conversations. Every lie I could remember. Going back years. February 18th, Diane told Pastor Jim I'm emotionally unstable. And I told church ladies I won't get help. February 19th, Cole stopped by the store, pretended he was checking crop insurance rates. Diane came out from the back office, laughing at something he said. Didn't know I was watching from the elevator. February 20th, Macy asked if I was moving out permanently. I said no. She said Mom thinks I should get professional help. Didn't argue. The documentation felt cold. Clinical, but Linda said it mattered. Build the case. Show the pattern. Frank walked in with coffee. Real coffee this time? From the good place in town? Not the sludge we usually made? The smell cut through the diesel and grain dust. Something bright, almost hopeful. You been here all night again? Couldn't sleep at home. Warren. He set the coffee down. This can't keep going. You're going to kill yourself sleeping on that couch. I'm fine. You're not fine. You look like hell. He pulled up the other chair, the one with the broken wheel. I talked to Linda yesterday about protecting the business. I looked up from my notebook, and we can restructure the LLC. Separate operating agreement that isolates your personal finances from the business equity. If Diane's lawyer comes after the feed store, they'll hit a wall. Your shares stay yours, mine stay mine. She can't touch the operation. That legal? Completely. We're partners. 50-50. Always have been. This just makes it official on paper. Protected from marital asset division. He leaned back. The chair creaked. I also told Linda I'd buy you out if it came to that. Give you cash, keep the business running. You could start over somewhere else. I'm not starting over. This is my home. I know, but the option's there. He pulled out his tobacco tin. There's something else. Macy's college fund. You been thinking about it? I had, every night. Macy wanted Iowa State agricultural business degree. She'd gotten early acceptance, partial scholarship. But tuition, room, board, still $40,000 a year, 4 years. I'd been saving since she was born, since Diane told me she was born. What about it? You gonna pull the money? The question hung there. Outside, a tractor started up in the lot. Some farmer getting an early jump on equipment maintenance. The sound rattled through the walls. No. Frank studied me. Warren, you don't owe her that. Legally or morally, Cole's her biological father. Let him pay. Cole doesn't have $40,000. He's got credit card debt and a wife divorcing him. And Macy, my throat tightened. She didn't ask for this. Didn't ask to be born into a lie. She wants to learn the business, wants to come back here after school. I'm not taking that from her because her mother's a liar. So you're paying for Cole's kids' college? I'm paying for my daughter's college. The distinction mattered, to me, if nobody else. Frank spat into his can, nodded slowly. All right, then let's do it right. Set up a trust. Irrevocable. Put the money where Diane can't touch it if things go south. And Warren, he met my eyes. We should talk about your life insurance too. That $500,000 policy, who's the beneficiary? I hadn't thought about it. Macy, I guess. It's been that way since she was born. Change it. Make the trust the beneficiary. That way, if something happens to you before this is over, the money goes directly to her education. Diane can't claim it in the divorce settlement. Smart, cold, but smart. You think something's gonna happen to me? I think you're sleeping in a freezing office, not eating right, and carrying more stress than any man should. I think you need to protect what matters while you still can. He stood up. Come on. We're going to the bank, setting up the trust today. Then we're getting food. Real food, not gas station sandwiches. The bank smelled like new carpet and paper. The trust officer, young guy, couldn't be more than 30, walked us through the paperwork. Irrevocable educational trust for Macy and Bellamy. $50,000 transferred immediately. Protected from creditors, divorce settlements, any future claims. And the life insurance beneficiary? The officer asked. Change it to the trust. That's $500,000. You're sure? I signed the form. My hand was steadier than it had been in weeks. I'm sure. Frank co-signed as trustee backup. If something happened to me, he'd make sure Macy got her education. No matter what Diane tried. We walked out into February cold that was starting to feel different. Not warmer, exactly, but less brutal. The sun hit the ice patches and they glistened instead of just looking dead. You did the right thing, Frank said. I did the only thing. We got lunch at Ruth's. The diner was half empty. Too late for the breakfast crowd, too early for dinner. Ruth brought us coffee without asking, set down menus we didn't need. The usual? Please. She hesitated. Warren, I heard about the test results. I'm sorry. News travels. Always does. But for what it's worth, I think you're handling this with more grace than most men would. She squeezed my shoulder. Her hand was warm, solid, real. Macy's lucky to have you, even if she doesn't see it yet. After she left, Frank said, we need to talk about Linda's strategy. Which is? Document everything. Every lie Diane tells, every time she manipulates Macy, every interaction with Cole. Build a case that shows she's been systematically deceiving you for years. It won't change the paternity ruling, but it might influence the asset division. Show the judge she doesn't deserve half. I pulled out my field notebook, showed him the pages I'd filled. Frank read them slowly. His jaw worked the tobacco. When he finished, he looked up. This is good. Detailed, dated, keep going. He pushed the notebook back. And Warren, one more thing. You need to decide, are you fighting for the money or are you fighting for your dignity? What's the difference? The money, you might lose. The dignity, you keep no matter what, long as you don't compromise yourself. He leaned forward. Don't badmouth Diane to Macy. Don't stoop to her level. You stay the better man. That's how you win the long game. The food came. Eggs and hash browns, bacon crispy how I liked it. The smell was almost enough to make me hungry. Frank raised his coffee cup. To dignity. I clinked my cup against his. To dignity. Outside, the ice was melting, slow, barely noticeable. But melting. The reputation attack came through the church first. Pastor Jim called me on a Sunday morning. Late February. Cold rain instead of snow. Everything turning to mud. Warren, we need to talk. Can you come by the church? I drove over. The parking lot was empty except for his sedan. Puddles everywhere, reflecting gray sky. The rain drummed on my truck roof, steady and cold. I could smell wet asphalt and something organic, last year's leaves rotting in the gutters. Inside, the church smelled like old hymnals and lemon furniture polish. Pastor Jim was in his office, looking uncomfortable. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Diane came to see me yesterday, with several of the church ladies. He folded his hands. They're concerned about you? They say you've been making accusations, harassing Diane, refusing to seek help for, and I'm quoting here, paranoid delusions about Macy's paternity. I sat there. Water dripped from my coat onto the carpet. They showed me their concerns in writing, a petition actually, asking that I intervene, get you into counseling, help you see that you're destroying your family over. He stopped. Warren, is there any truth to what Diane's saying? I pulled out the photo, set it on his desk. Explained the timeline, December 1988, January 1989, April birth, the test results, the court ruling. Pastor Jim studied the photo for a long time. The rain hit the window. A radiator clanked somewhere in the building. Oh, he said finally. Oh, Warren, I didn't... He looked up at me. She told us you were fabricating this. That you'd become obsessed with an old photograph that meant nothing. She's been telling a lot of people a lot of things. I need to make some calls. He handed the photo back. Warren, I'm sorry. I should have asked for your side before now. By Monday, the temperature had shifted at Ruth's diner. Not much. Small towns don't turn on a dime, but enough. When I walked in for coffee, Ruth waved me to the counter instead of leaving me in the corner booth. Heard you talk to Pastor Jim, she said quietly, pouring coffee. The smell was strong, almost bitter. Good. He called me yesterday, asked some questions about what Diane's been saying, and I told him the truth, that Diane's version doesn't match what I've seen. She leaned closer. The counter was warm where the coffee maker sat. Warren, honey, I've known you 40 years. Known Diane 18. And in all that time, I never saw you lie. But Diane? She made a small sound. That woman can spin a story. Eddie Kowalski came in, stamped mud off his boots, saw me at the counter, walked over instead of away. Warren, you get that seat order figured out? Working on it. Good. 'Cause Miller's called me again, said if you don't confirm by March 1st, they're reallocating. He pulled out his wallet, set a 20 on the counter, though he hadn't ordered. Look, I don't know what's happening with your marriage. Not my business, but the feed store, that's different. That's all of us. We need you steady. I'm steady. Then prove it. Place the order. He picked up his 20, put it back. And Warren, whatever Diane's saying about you, I'm not buying it. You're the steadiest man I know. He left. Ruth refilled my cup without asking. Words spreading, she said. People are asking questions about the timeline, about Cole, about why Diane's story keeps changing. The door opened again. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of mud and rain. Cole Hartman stood in the doorway, scanning the diner, saw me. His face went tight. I stood up, left money on the counter, walked outside. Cole followed. We stood in the parking lot, rain coming down light but steady. The puddles were deep, reflecting nothing but gray. Cole's truck, new F-350, probably financed, sat in the handicap spot even though he wasn't handicapped. Warren, get off my property. This is Ruth's. I own the building. Ruth leases. So, get off my property before I make you. Cole held up his hands. Look, I didn't come to fight. I came to talk. Nothing to talk about. There is, actually. He glanced back at the diner. Ruth was watching through the window, phone in hand. Diane told me you knew, from the beginning. She said you two had an arrangement, that you were okay with it. The rain soaked through my coat. I could feel it cold against my shirt. An arrangement. Yeah. She said, he stopped, read my face. She lied, didn't she? About everything. For 17 years. Cole's expression shifted. Something cracked behind his eyes. Jesus. Warren, I thought you knew. She said you were fine with us staying friends, that it was all out in the open. I never would have. You had an affair with a married woman and got her pregnant. Don't act like you're innocent. We were together before you. His voice was defensive now, cracking. High school sweethearts. She chose you because you had money and stability. I was the one she loved. Then why'd she lie to me? Why not just leave? No answer. Because the answer was obvious. Diane wanted both, my money, Cole's excitement. And she'd gotten it for 17 years. Your wife knows, I said. Cole went pale. What? Susan. She called me last week. Said she's known for years. Said you told her when you were drunk. She's filing for divorce. And she's willing to testify that Diane's been lying to everyone about our arrangement. The color drained from his face completely. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Susan wouldn't. She already did. Signed an affidavit. Linda's got it on file. And a truck pulled into the lot. Eddie Kowalski again, coming back for something he'd forgotten. He saw us standing there in the rain, Warren and Cole. His expression hardened. Cole saw it too. Saw the way Eddie looked at him, like he was something stuck to a boot. "This is going to ruin me," Cole said quietly. "Yeah. My business, my marriage, everything. Yeah." Warren, please, can't we work something out? I'll pay child support going forward. I'll tell Macy the truth myself, whatever you need. I need you gone, out of this town, away from my daughter, away from my wife." "Your wife," Cole said bitterly. "She's not yours anymore." "Not really. Neither is she yours." I stepped closer, close enough to smell his cologne, expensive and wrong. "You destroyed 2 families, Cole." Diane destroyed 2 families. And now everyone's gonna know it. That's the deal. I walked back to my truck. Eddie stood by his, watching. When I passed him, he nodded once. Respect. Recognition. Behind me, Cole stood alone in the rain, realizing what he'd lost. The trap Diane had built, the lies, the manipulation, the fake story about arrangements and agreements was closing. Not around me, around her. March came in with cold rain that turned the roads to mud. Spring, trying to break through, but not quite there yet. I was in the elevator office when Pastor Jim showed up unannounced, knocked twice, then walked in without waiting. He looked older than he had a month ago. "Warren, we need to talk." I set down my coffee. The thermos was nearly empty. I'd been drinking it cold all morning, too distracted to make fresh. "About what?" "About Macy." He sat in the broken chair. "She came to see me yesterday, crying. Asked me if you were really going to divorce her mother, if you were really going to destroy the family over a paternity test." The words hit like fists. "What did you tell her?" I told her the truth is complicated, that sometimes families break for reasons nobody wants. He leaned forward. The chair groaned. "But, Warren, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Are you sure about this? About pushing forward with the divorce? About telling Macy everything? She deserves the truth? Maybe, but she's 3 months from 18, 3 months from adulthood. If you wait, if you just hold on until June, she'll be legal. The custody issues go away. The child support calculations change. You could handle this without putting her in the middle." I looked at him. Pastor Jim, who'd baptized Macy, who'd counseled me and Diane through rough patches, who'd been there for Sarah's funeral and my remarriage, and every Sunday for 30 years. "You think I should lie to her?" "I think you should consider the cost." His voice was gentle, not judging, just tired. "Warren, I've seen what this is doing to you, the weight you're carrying. And I've seen what it's doing to Macy. She's confused, angry, scared. If you tell her now, you risk losing her forever. Diane will spin it, make you the villain, and Macy might believe her." The rain hit the metal roof, steady, relentless. The sound filled the silence. So I stay quiet. Let Diane keep lying. I'm saying maybe some truths are too expensive. Maybe love means protecting her from this, even if it costs you everything else. I stood up, walked to the window. The grain bins stood silent in the rain, metal sides streaming water. Beyond them, the field stretched gray and empty, waiting for spring that wouldn't come. "What if the lie destroys her worse than the truth?" I said. "What if she finds out later, 10 years from now, 20, and realizes I knew and said nothing, that I let her believe a fiction because it was easier? Or what if she never finds out? What if she gets to keep her family intact, her father, her innocence? Is that so wrong?" I didn't have an answer. The doubt was real, physical, a weight in my chest that made breathing hard. "If you raised a child on a lie?" I asked. "Are you still her father?" Pastor Jim was quiet a long time. Outside, a crow called from the bins. The rain kept all falling. "If you raise her with love despite the lie," he said finally, "you're more than her father. You're her choice." After he left, I sat at the desk with a blank piece of paper. Started writing, stopped, started again. "Dear Macy." The words wouldn't come. How do you tell someone their entire life is built on deception? That the mother they trust is a liar? That the father who raised them shares no blood? I filled 3 pages, crossed out 2. The third I folded carefully, put in an envelope, wrote her name on the front. Then I locked it in the desk drawer. I wouldn't send it, but I needed to write it, needed to know I could explain if the moment came. Then I picked up my father's watch, the one he'd worn through 2 wars and 40 harvests, the one he'd given me when I turned 21, said it was time I learned what mattered. "Time reveals truth," he'd told me, "and truth reveals character." I wound the watch, set the time. When I told Macy, and I would tell her, soon, I'd give her this, not as goodbye, as promise, as proof that family isn't blood, it's choice. It's staying when you could leave. It's loving when it costs everything. Linda called that afternoon. We need to prepare for the truth conversation with Macy. Before Diane spins it her way, you tell her on your terms, privately, with love. Or she hears it in court, twisted and ugly. Not when. Soon, before the divorce hearing, before things get worse. I looked at the watch, at the letter in the drawer, at the rain turning to mist outside. I'll be ready. Ma. The rain stopped just before sunset. The clouds broke enough to show pale light. Not much, but something. I wound my father's watch one more time. The ticking was steady, certain. Time to tell the truth, even if it cost me everything. Early April. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the world wet and clean. Robins were back, building nests in the barn eaves. The mud was starting to firm up. Spring, real spring, was coming. I called Macy, asked her to meet me at the elevator after her shift. She agreed, voice careful. We hadn't been alone together since the courthouse. She arrived at 6. The sun was low, golden light slanting through the loading dock doors. The elevator smelled like it always did. Seed corn and diesel and 40 years of work. She climbed the metal stairs to the offices where I was waiting. Dad. She stayed in the doorway, cautious. Come sit, honey. She did. The couch springs groaned. She looked so much like Diane. The same eyes, the same careful way of moving. But she had my stubbornness, my quietness. The things that mattered weren't in blood. I had the photo on the desk, the test results, my father's watch. I need to tell you something, I said. And I need you to hear all of it before you decide what it means. Her face went tight. Is this about the divorce? It's about the truth. I showed her the photo first. Explained the date stamp, December 1988. Explained when I'd met Diane, January 1980. Let her do the math herself. She stared at the photo. Her hands shook. This doesn't prove anything. Mom said it was mislabeled. Church archives are... Macy. I set the test results next to the photo. I had a paternity test done, court-ordered. The results came back in February. She read them. Her face went pale. The office was silent, except for the distant sound of robins outside and the creak of metal settling. Cole Hartman is 99.97% match. She read aloud. Her voice broke. You're 0% biological relation. Yeah. She set the paper down, stood up, walked to the window. Her shoulders were shaking. So, you're not my father. Biologically, no. Legally, yes. In every way that matters, yes, I am your father. I've been your father for 17 years. I had changed your diapers, taught you to ride a bike, helped you with homework, showed you how to run this elevator. That doesn't change because of a test. But Mom, she turned around, tears on her face, angry ones. She lied to you, to me, about everything. Yes. For how long? The whole time. She leaned against the window frame. The glass was cold behind her. I could see her breath fog it. Outside, the fields were turning green. New growth, pushing through old dead stalks. Does this mean I'm not a Bellamy? The question broke something in me. I stood up, walked to her. She was almost as tall as me now. When had that happened? Honey, you're the only Bellamy who matters. I picked up my father's watch, the one he'd given me when I turned 21. This was my dad's. He wore it through World War II and Korea, through 40 years farming, through everything that made him who he was. He gave it to me and said, time reveals truth. Truth reveals character. I want you to have it. Dad, not because I'm leaving, because I'm staying. Because blood doesn't make family, choice does, and I choose you. I put the watch in her hand. It was warm from sitting in the sun. You didn't ask to be born into this lie. You didn't ask for any of it. But you're still my daughter. You're still going to Iowa State in the fall. Still gonna come back and run this elevator someday if you want. Nothing changes that. She looked at the watch, at the photo, at me. Then she started crying, real crying, the kind that comes from deep places. I pulled her close. She buried her face in my shoulder like she was 6 years old again. We stood there while the sun set, and the office got dark, and the robins sang their evening songs. You didn't have to stay, she whispered. When you found out, you could have left. I know. But you stayed. Yeah, that's... Her voice broke. That's more than blood. That's real. We held each other until the stars came out, until the cold drove us inside, until she pulled back and wiped her face and looked at me with new eyes. What about the business? She asked. Frank's loan, the seed order, is all that still? Frank and I restructured. The loan's approved under the new LLC. Business is protected. And I placed the seed order last week. Smaller than usual, but honest. We're rebuilding. And I showed her the trust documents. And there's this. $50,000 in an irrevocable trust for your education. Plus the life insurance, $500,000, goes to the trust if anything happens to me. You're protected, honey, no matter what happens with the divorce. What, you did all that? Even after finding out I'm not, you're mine. That's all that matters. She put on the watch. It was too big for her wrist, but she didn't care. She looked at it like it was the most valuable thing in the world. I love you, Dad. I love you too, honey. 3 days later, Diane moved out. She'd been staying with friends since March, but now it was official. She came for her things while I was at the feed store, deliberate, avoiding me. But Macy was home. I got the call at 4 in the afternoon, Macy's voice, shaking. Dad, you need to come home right now. And I drove too fast, mud flying from the tires. When I got there, Macy was sitting on the porch steps. She had something in her hands, a wooden jewelry box, the one Diane's mother had given her, the one Diane kept on her dresser, always locked. I was packing her stuff, Macy said. Her voice was hollow. The box fell, the lock broke, and I found... She handed me a stack of letters. Tied with a ribbon, yellowed with age, I opened the first one. The paper smelled like old perfume and dust. Dear Diane, can't stop thinking about last night. You're... everything Susan isn't. Exciting, passionate, alive. I know you're scared about the baby, but don't be. We'll figure it out together. You said you'd tell Warren when the time is right. I trust you. Can't wait to meet our daughter. Love, Cole. January 1989. January 1989, before Macy was born. Before Diane had told me she was pregnant, I read through the stack. 18 years of letters, birthday cards, notes passed like they were teenagers. The whole affair, documented, preserved, hidden in plain sight. She planned it, Macy said. She was crying again, different tears, angry, betrayed. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't one night. She knew from the beginning. She used you. And the letters felt heavy. Evidence of a conspiracy that spanned my daughter's entire life. Did you read them all? I asked. Enough. I sat down beside her on the steps. The evening was warm. The smell of turned earth and new grass, spring arriving, despite everything. There's something else, Macy said. She handed me another paper. I found this in your desk. When I was looking for the trust documents you mentioned, you said they were in the top drawer. My letter. The one I'd written and locked away. The one I'd never meant to send. She'd read it, every word. You were going to tell me anyway, she said. Before the test results. Before everything. You were going to tell me the truth because you love me enough to risk losing me. Yeah, Mom was going to keep lying forever. Even now, she told me yesterday that you're making everything up. That the test results are fake. That I should choose her side. Macy looked at me. Her eyes, Diane's eyes, were clear, decided. I choose you, Dad. I don't have a mother anymore, but I have you. That's when Diane pulled into the driveway. She saw us on the porch, saw the jewelry box, saw the letters spread between us. Her face went white. Macy, don't. Macy stood up. Just don't. I read them, all of them. You lied to him for 18 years. You lied to me my whole life. And you were never going to stop. Honey, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You wanted his money and Cole's excitement, so you lied to everyone. Macy's voice was steel, my stubbornness. You don't get to call me honey anymore. You don't get to call me anything. Diane looked at me, then at the letters, then back at Macy. This is his fault. He turned you against me. No, you did that yourself. Diane got in her car, slammed the door, drove away, gravel flying. Macy sat back down, put her head on my shoulder. The watch on her wrist caught the last of the sunlight, gold and steady, ticking like a promise. We're going to be okay, I said. Yeah, we are. The robins sang, the fields turned green, and for the first time in months, I believed it. Late April. The morning sun was warm on the porch, first real heat of spring. I sat with my coffee in the 1987 thermos, watching the fields green up. The seed order I'd placed in March was showing results. Smaller than usual, 60,000 instead of 85, but honest. Farmers were coming back. Frank's truck pulled up the drive, mud caked on the wheel wells. He climbed out with 2 bags from Ruth's diner, breakfast sandwiches and more coffee. The smell of bacon and eggs cut through the morning air. Thought you might be hungry, he said, settling into the other porch chair. Saw Eddie Kowalski in town. He said his corn's up 3 inches already. Wants to know if we'll have capacity for his fall harvest. And we will. Good, because Miller's called yesterday. Said our spring order was solid. Want to confirm for next year. Full 85,000. Frank unwrapped his sandwich. We're back, brother. Business is steady. The bank loan had come through 2 weeks ago. Equipment upgrade approved under the new LLC structure. Diane's lawyer had tried to claim half the business equity, but Linda's restructuring held. The business was protected. Always had been. Frank and I 50-50 partners since before Diane entered the picture. Divorce hearings next month, I said. You ready? As I'll ever be. Frank chewed tobacco, spat into his can. The robins were everywhere now, building nests, singing. The sound filled the morning, bright and relentless and hopeful. Susan Hartman testified yesterday, Frank said. Deposition for Linda. Confirmed everything, that Cole told her about the affair years ago, that Diane's been lying about the arrangement, that they both knew Macy was Cole's from day one. How'd Cole take it? Badly. His insurance business is tanking. Nobody wants crop insurance from a man who lies. His biggest clients dropped him last week. Heard he's looking at bankruptcy. Frank took another bite. Diane moved in with him, you know, right after she left here. I'd heard. Small towns. How's that going? About like you'd expect. Cole's broke, his reputation's shot, and he's stuck with a woman who destroyed 2 families for him. Turns out that's not as romantic as he thought. Frank grinned without humor. Karma's got a hell of a sense of timing. We ate in comfortable silence. The kind that comes from 50 years of friendship. The fields stretched out before us, green and new. My grandfather had plowed these acres. My father had planted them. Now Macy would learn to work them, if she wanted. The choice was hers. She's going to Iowa State in August, I said. Yeah? Full ride. Scholarship came through, plus the trust fund for expenses. She'll study agricultural business, come back after graduation if she wants. I sipped my coffee. Linda confirmed the trust is ironclad. Diane can't touch it. Life insurance either. Macy's set. You did good, Warren. I did what any father would do. No, you did what a real father does. Big difference. Frank stood up, stretched, his back cracked. We were getting old, both of us. But we were still here, still working, still building. I'm heading to the elevator. You coming? In a bit, Des. After he left, I sat alone with the morning. The fields, the robins, the sun, warming everything it touched. Macy's window upstairs was open. I could hear her moving around, packing for a weekend trip to visit Iowa State's campus, getting ready for her future. She came down 20 minutes later, wearing my old feed store cap and my father's watch. The watch was still too big, but she'd punched a new hole in the band to make it fit. Morning, Dad. Morning, honey. She sat on the porch rail, coffee mug in hand. I've been thinking about something. Yeah? When I graduate, when I come back, I want to work the business with you and Frank. Really work it. Learn everything. The grain elevator, the books, the farmer relationships, all of it. Oh, she looked at me. I want the Bellamy name to mean something. Not because of blood, because of what we build. My throat tightened. You sure? I'm sure. This is home. Your home. Home. And she touched the watch. And I want to pass this down someday. To my kids, if I have them. Keep the precision. Keep the promise. The field stretched green toward the horizon. The robins sang. Somewhere in the distance, a tractor started up, another farmer getting ready for spring work. Then it's yours, I said. All of it. The business, the land, the legacy. Not because you have to take it. Because you choose it. Fair enough. She smiled. It was my smile, the quiet one, earned, real. Not Diane's, not Cole's, mine. Because family isn't what you inherit, it's what you build. That afternoon, I went to the county courthouse to sign more paperwork. Divorce proceedings, asset division, final calculations. Diane was there with her lawyer. We didn't speak. Didn't need to. She'd gotten what she wanted. Cole, the lies exposed, the truth laid bare. She'd lost everything else. Her daughter, her standing in the community, the comfortable life she'd built on deception. I got what I needed. My daughter, my dignity, the business. The truth. The numbers worked out different than Linda had predicted. With Susan's testimony, with the letters, with the pattern of lies documented in my field notebook, the judge reduced the asset split. Diane got 30% instead of 50%. The retroactive child support was waived entirely. The court finds that Mrs. Bellamy's sustained pattern of deception constitutes marital misconduct, warranting adjustment of the equitable distribution, Judge Harrison said. Mr. Bellamy acted in good faith throughout. The financial penalty should reflect that. Diane's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. Outside, Linda walked me to my truck. The spring air smelled like rain that hadn't fallen yet. Clean, promising. You won, she said. Did I? Legally, financially, morally, yeah, you won. I climbed in the truck, started the engine. The radio came on, some country station Macy had been listening to. A song about going home. Feels more like survival than winning. Sometimes that's the same thing. I drove home through afternoon light that turned everything gold. The seed I'd ordered in March was up everywhere. Green rows stretching toward horizons that didn't end. The farmers I'd served for 40 years were back, trusting the Bellamy name again. The business was steady. Macy was secure. Frank was solid. Diane had Cole. Cole had nothing. They had each other in the ruins of what they'd destroyed. Me? I had spring. I had the fields. I had my daughter who chose me. I had the watch ticking on Macy's wrist, keeping time like promises do. When I pulled into the drive, Macy was on the porch with her packed bags, ready for her campus visit. She waved, I waved back. The robins were building nests in the barn. The mud was firming to solid ground. Winter was over, fair enough. 3 weeks later, I sat on the porch at dawn with my coffee. The rain gauge showed 2 inches from last night's storm. Good for the seedlings. The fields were coming up strong, even rows of green pushing through dark soil. The robins had finished their nests. Every morning they sang like the world was new. People ask me if I regret it. Regret what? Loving my daughter, fighting for the truth, losing a wife who never respected me. I lost money, lost time, lost the comfortable lie that keeps most men quiet, but I kept what mattered. My grandfather used to say, you can't choose your blood, but you can choose your family. He was right. Macy chose me. I chose her. That's stronger than any DNA test. Diane got Cole. They're living in a rental 2 counties over, from what I hear. His business failed. Her friends stopped calling. They've got each other and the ruins they built together. Sometimes that's punishment enough. Frank and I signed the new equipment contracts yesterday. Business is growing, again, not back to where it was, but getting there. Honest growth, earned growth, the kind that lasts because it's built on truth instead of lies. Macy starts Iowa State in August. She'll come home for Thanksgiving, Christmas, summers, if she wants, and when she graduates. If she still wants the elevator, it's hers. The Bellamy name, the legacy. Not because of blood, but because she chose it, because she stayed when she could have left. Because love is a choice, not an accident. The sun cleared the tree line, warming the porch boards. My father's watch sat on the table. Macy had left it there yesterday with a note, keeping it safe until I come back. Love you, Dad. The watch ticked steady. Time reveals truth. Truth reveals character. They thought silence was surrender. Turned out it was just strategy. The field stretched green toward the horizon. Spring had come after all. The land remembers who loved it and who tried to use it. The land remembers. And now, so would we. Fair enough.